Hello and welcome. My name is Rae'chel and today I'm going to show you how to make these modular wilderness tiles that'll make you popular at your game table. First, I'm going to show you cutting and sizing the bases. Then we're going to base coat our tiles to give them that dirt aesthetic. And then we'll definitely add plant life. And as a bonus, I'll show you how to do static grass without any fancy machines. We're going to start by cutting our bases out of XPS foam. The tiles are a grid of 3x3 squares. Measurements and other products that I use will be listed on the screen as they come up. I cut foam with a Proxxon hot wire, but you can do this part with an X-Acto knife and some practice. Don't twig out because there's no required height for your tiles as long as they're all the same. But for consistency with all of my other modular stuff, I've made my tiles a ½ inch tall. These 3x3 tiles will be able to match up however you need. For more visually dynamic tiles, look for a part 2 of this video, where I show you how to make 6x6s. If you want stability for your game tiles, you can choose a system to lock them together. I personally use a magnet system that I learned from RP Archive. If you'd rather stick to basic materials like chipboard, check out Wyloch's Armory or earlier versions of RP Archive stuff. Now it's time to lay the groundwork. Our solution is 2 parts Mod Podge, 1 part brown paint, and 1 part literal actual dirt. Alternatively, you can use sand, flocking, and rocks instead to give it that same texture. Then, using a cheap old paintbrush, we put on the mud, whittle by whittle. Mudnificent. Once the mud is dry, I do some dry brushing, since painting around the static grass will only make our lives harder. Browns on the twig-looking debris and grays on the rock-looking debris. Now is also a good time to coat the sides in our brown Mod Podge base coat, sans dirt. If you want to get fancy before adding the plants, now is also a good time to experiment with features, like this log for example, which is just a piece of wood I picked up on a hike. Sanitize and dry before adding to your terrain. Now we're going to add our static grass. I do this by first brushing on liquid PVA glue and letting it get tacky. The thicker glue helps the grass to stay standing once you zap it. But I digress. You'll also notice I've left a large spot or 2 for attaching trees later on should we want to turn our wilderness into a full-on forest, and some small spots will be for adhesive grass tufts. I'm using my handy-dandy sifter cup to cover all the glue. Move the tile around to get plenty of coverage. And then make sure you shake off as much loose grass as you can. Doing this over paper will allow you to recover the excess. And then it's time for my secret weapon. You can generate more static electricity if you rub against plastic-based fabrics, like polyester. Shh, hey, listen. That's the sound of all the little excess grass pieces that the balloon may pull up. But if you shook a lot of it off before, then you won't have much waste, because for cleanup, I rinse off the excess grass. Then brought out a second balloon to use as the first balloon is drying. Then alternate between the 2. It's not every day you get to use a balloon to make terrain. Now the discerning eye may notice a particular pattern to how the grass is laid out, and this is where the modularity comes in. The trick to getting these tiles to match seamlessly is to make 2 sides grass and leave 2 sides without. You can do whatever you want in the middle so long as you follow this rule. For now, I've only done diagonals since it's more flexible to have all the pieces the same, but I've begun experimenting with different layouts on the big pieces. Branch out and try different grass arrangements for your tiles. We continue to spruce up our tiles with a different grass. I'm using a pipette with a glue and water mix to seep into some of our pre-existing grass, as well as directly on the dirt, and once again letting it get tacky. I find this gives visual variety more akin to a biodiverse wilderness. And then once that's all been statified and left to dry, we can stick on the store-bought tufts. I got 4 different kinds and sizes, and I stuck about 1 to 2 large ones and 5 to 7 small ones per tile. I had a hard time pushing them on, so I used a tool to gently stick them down. Wilderness is of course incomplete without a sprinkling of debris. I'm using thyme leaves and green tea leaves, which I put through a coffee grinder to make smaller, but I'm sure if you check your spice cabinet, you can find other herbs that'll work well too. Once everything is completely dried, all that's left to do is to give our delicate foliage some rigidity. I use a matte varnish spray. Give it a couple of coats following the directions on the can closely, lest you end up with a white frosted look. Congratulations! You now have your very own set of modular wilderness tiles. These tiles work great for encounters in grasslands, plains, shrublands, and can be transformed into forests or jungles, swamps, you name it. There are a ton of different add-ons you can make to enhance your wilderness terrain, including rocky outcroppings, hills, deadfall, stumps, and of course, a whole scatter terrain system to make a tremendous forest. So, if you're ready to get out of the wilds and into the woods, click on this video here. When it's out, it might not be out yet, in which case, recommended will be here.